Within this past year especially, there's been a lot of complaints and controversies surrounding LEGO's design choices, prices, and overall quality, so today I want to dive into these issues and break them down from my perspective. For decades, LEGO's essentially been the gold standard for modern toys. The brand has built a long-standing reputation and is easily the most recognizable toy company worldwide. Its cultural influence expands beyond its plastic bricks into movies, video games, and theme parks, and it's solidified its image as more than just a building block system. In this video, we'll specifically take a closer look at LEGO's quality control issues, pricing and value, the shift to adult-focused products, changes in part quality and materials, over-licensing and the lack of creativity, and finally, what we can do as fans. To me, LEGO's always felt like a company that truly cares about its customers and their overall experience. They strive to create high-quality sets that deliver value for every audience. However, one major issue that's really hurt that is the increase in errors. There's issues on websites, instructions, or boxes that don't actually affect the product, such as the wrong logo on the UCS gunship, but then there's also printing errors on stickers and printed tiles, or parts missing from sets that can range from 1 or 2 pieces to entire bags. That definitely creates some disruptions to the customer experience. Now, LEGO customer service is really good and will usually fix these mistakes, but it definitely shows some quality control issues and a lack of thoroughness in some cases. If you have to wait multiple weeks to get a missing part and continue your build, that's going to sour the building experience for most people, and it seems like there's been an increase in errors in recent years. Beyond part errors though, there's a bigger conversation going on about price and value. Fans have been complaining about pricing for years now, but these complaints have been especially strong this past year. A couple of recent controversies are the $1,000 UCS Death Star and the almost $500 tropical aquarium, so I'm going to use these as examples. The UCS Death Star is a great set in my opinion, despite not being much of a LEGO Star Wars fan myself. Was $1,000 a bit high for a 9,000 piece set? Sure, but at the end of the day, it's understandable that licensed sets are going to maybe cost a bit extra per piece, and inflation certainly affects the actual cost of materials. The bigger issue with this set in my opinion is the figures. There's multiple figures that have a better version and a cheaper set that weren't included, such as dual molded legs for the Imperial officers and C-3PO's dual molded silver and gold leg. You could literally buy the dual molded dark bluish gray and black legs for Imperial officers on Pick-a-Brick for only 10 cents more than the dark bluish gray legs before PAB's standard shut down. This shows that there can't be that much of a cost difference on LEGO's end, and it just feels like LEGO is cutting too many corners or intentionally holding back on certain parts to encourage buying the other sets that have them. Either way, that doesn't sit right with me, especially for a set at this price point. A $1,000 set should be going all out on making the figures look great with new arm and leg printing, and it just feels a bit cheap on LEGO's part to do so little. I'm gonna leave a link to a video by Obi-Wan Studios who really dives deep into how limited the designers were if you're interested, but for now, let's move on to the tropical aquarium. This set, on the other hand, is unlicensed with no minifigures, and it doesn't use any massive or expensive to produce elements to my knowledge, yet it sits at around 11.5 cents per piece. The overall size is pretty decent, although a large black frame with no transparent parts is making it look a bit bigger than it actually is. It's a really cute set, but the value just isn't there for the price. Let's compare it to Rivendell, which is one of my favorite sets of all time, and something that I definitely think is worth the price tag of $500. Only $20 more than the aquarium, by the way. Rivendell as a licensed set has 6,167 pieces with a price per piece of just over 8 cents, nearly 50% better value on that metric. Of course, that's not a perfect measurement as there's a ton of small pieces in the set, but it's definitely a significantly larger set, and it also includes 21 minifigures if you include the statues, all of them having some sort of new print and or mold. Overall, the aquarium shows a growing trend of LEGO inflating set prices to squeeze every last bit of profit out of them. There's also the issue of stickers versus printed tiles, and for a set like Rivendell where I see a lot of value in other places, I don't mind stickers as much, but for something like the Death Star that's already skimped on printed elements for the minifigures, it feels disappointing to have 50 stickers on top of that. Inflation, tariffs, and in turn materials raise costs, but when LEGO continues to report record profits while set value and quality drops, it's easy to see why fans are frustrated. One other thing that I've noticed a lot in recent sets is what I like to call part inflation, where a set uses multiple multiple pieces in a place where there could just be one. While there can be legitimate reasons for this, like already including a smaller piece in the set, and naturally sets have been getting smaller to add more detail, which I don't mind, sometimes it just looks like LEGO is squeezing in extra pieces to justify a higher price. Don't even get me started on the smart brick, as that seems like a whole other way for LEGO to tack on higher price tags, but for that we'll just have to see what happens when they release. That brings us to the adult-focused 18+ line, which needs to be part of the conversation when discussing LEGO's rising prices. In 2020, LEGO started pushing a lot harder towards adult fans with the line, and it coincided with a global pandemic that left people stuck in their houses looking for ways to occupy their free time. Sales absolutely boomed that year, especially from adults getting back into their childhood hobby, but somewhere along the way, LEGO seemed to have realized how powerful that nostalgia is and how it can be used to further maximize profits. Nowadays, the focus seems to have shifted less from delivering real value and more about capitalizing on the brand name to use people's fear of missing out or nostalgia to drive sales, even if the sets don't live up to previous counterparts. The result is expensive sets that oftentimes don't meet expectations. Like I previously mentioned, it isn't just the builds that are the problem, minifigures are getting less new prints and unique elements as well. A great example of the gradual decline in figure quality is the decrease in cloth elements such as commas and shoulder pauldrons for clones, or the replacement of Doctor Strange's two-piece cloak with a single plastic version. There's also plenty of figures that had arm or leg printing a decade or more ago that simply don't receive that level of quality even in more expensive sets. One example is the 2004 Greedo with full arm printing while coming in a set that was $30 at the time, but no longer having it in the 2020 Mos Eisley Cantina version despite the set being over 10 times the price. It's strange the adult-focused sets that should be LEGO's highest quality are cutting corners instead, probably saving pennies on the dollar in a lot of cases. Moving on from the quality of the builds and figures, there's also growing issues with the quality of the pieces themselves, such as parts having more scratching, denting, and mold marks out of the box, as well as less clutch power on newer pieces. There's also an issue with color inconsistencies, even from pieces in the same set, and I'm not going to pretend that old LEGO didn't also have color inconsistencies, but it seems like this problem has expanded to more colors as opposed to less. When it comes to clutch power issues, I've especially noticed them when mixing and matching parts from different eras, most notably minifigure arms and legs. I do a ton of minifigure customization, and a figure I really like is the Series 27 Wolfpack Beastmaster, but I've noticed that the arms tend to fit a lot looser on older torsos than most other arms in my collection. While these issues won't bother most fans the same way things like increasing prices and fewer new minifigure elements will, it's certainly something to point out, especially in combination with those issues. An issue worth mentioning is LEGO's increased focus on licensed themes. Today's world is dominated by pop culture more than ever, so it makes sense that LEGO wants to lean into things that already have a loyal fan base, such as Star Wars with its cult-like following, making it easier to sell sets from the IP. On the other hand, LEGO's brand is built on creativity, and when a lot of sets are focused on replicating some scene or vehicle from a movie or TV show, that creative spark starts to fade. I'm a bit biased as a LEGO Castle fan, but I really wish LEGO would bring back more of their unlicensed themes at affordable price points, not just $100+ adult-focused sets. Without licensing fees, sets can offer better value while giving designers and fans more creative freedom. LEGO's main slogan is "Only the best is good enough," but at this point you have to ask, are they really striving for the best or just trying to make a quick buck off longtime customers? Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. To wrap it up, what can we as LEGO fans do about this? First, I encourage you to only buy a set if you truly believe it's worth that price. This might sound obvious, but if you think a set is overpriced and still buy it at that price, it sends the message to LEGO that you do think it's worth it. The Death Star sold out despite loads of complaints online about how overpriced and underwhelming it was. From LEGO's perspective, that just means more incentive to release similar sets. Personally, I've enjoyed set collecting less and less over time, as I found mock building and creating custom minifigures to be far more enjoyable and fulfilling, as that's where LEGO's creativity really shines. If you're tired of overpriced sets, I encourage you to give mock building a try. You can create whatever you want without the limitations of official designs, and don't let inexperience stop you. We all gotta start somewhere. There's also alt-brick companies making great products at lower prices like Les DIY and Lumi Bricks, just to name a couple of the brands I've actually tried, although there's certainly more out there, and if you enjoy set collecting, it's something worth checking out. Within this overall issue, it's worth staying vocal. Email LEGO about problems you have in your proposed solutions. It won't necessarily change everything overnight, but it never hurts to try, and if fans speak up and vote with their wallets, LEGO will eventually have to listen. This wasn't my usual style of video, as I typically focus on LEGO Castle and castle adjacent themes, but I thought it was an important topic, and if you enjoyed the video and want to see more in this style, let me know, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing, as it greatly helps the channel and supports what I'm doing here. As always, thank you for watching.